Alright folks, buckle up, because today's story is one for the ages, literally. We're diving into the legendary tale of Harold and Myrtle, a couple who might just be older than sliced bread, but can still sprint like they're being chased by a bear with tax papers. You see, Harold and Myrtle lived in a quiet little village known for its sheep, slow Wi-Fi, and surprisingly competitive bingo nights. Harold, 103 years old, and Myrtle, a sprightly 101, were the most talked about pair in town. Not for their age, but for the fact that they looked like they just walked off a fitness magazine cover. I'm talking six-pack abs, biceps like baguettes, and glutes that could crack a walnut. And that's just Myrtle. Now, one hot summer day, a curious tourist named Dave came to the village. Dave had heard tales of the legendary centenarians and decided he needed answers. As luck would have it, he found Harold chopping wood shirtless like a lumberjack calendar model. Dave stammered. "Excuse me, sir, are you Harold, the one who's 103? Harold, not missing a swing, replied, "That's me, though I don't look a day over 102 and a half. Dave chuckled awkwardly and said, "You look incredible. What's your secret? Yoga? Kale smoothies? Witchcraft?" Harold winked. "Help me carry this wood inside, and I'll tell ya." Inside the cottage, which, by the way, looked like it was decorated by a raccoon with a Pinterest account, Harold sat Dave down and spilled the ancient tea. "You see, son, Myrtle and I made a deal when we got married 80 years ago. Every time we argued, and believe me, we do that more than the government prints money, the loser of the argument had to run 5 kilometers. Dave's eyes widened. "Every argument? That sounds exhausting." "Exactly," Harold grinned. "And seeing as I've been married long enough to know that I'm always wrong, I've been running 5K almost every single day. Rain, shine, or geriatric back spasms." Dave laughed. "Okay, that explains you. But what about Myrtle? She looks like she could win a wrestling match against the kangaroo." Harold leaned in, whispering like he was revealing state secrets. "She runs after me to make sure I actually finish the 5K with a rolling pin. And that's just the beginning, my friends. See, their routine became something of a local legend. Every morning at 7 a.m., the villagers would hear the thunderous sound of Harold's orthopedic sneakers slapping the pavement, followed by Myrtle's determined shuffle, complete with a floral housecoat and a frying pan holstered at her hip. Local teens started placing bets. Will Harold beat his time today or get caught at the fruit stand again? One time, Harold tried to sneak away using the neighbor's mobility scooter. Bad idea. Myrtle chased him down with a Segway she borrowed from the community center. Rumor has it, the scooter is still in a ditch somewhere, humming sad little beeps. Now, you might be wondering, how did two people argue that much? Let's just say Myrtle has some strong opinions, like how pickles should never be on sandwiches, or how every TV remote must face magnetic north. Harold, naturally, disagrees, loudly, with charts. Once, they argued for 3 hours about whether a squirrel in the backyard was the same one from last week. It wasn't. It had a mustache. Harold insisted it was new. They ran 10K that day, each, 1 year. The mayor tried to give them an award for longest-lasting couple. They refused. Why? Because they couldn't agree on what shelf to put the plaque on. More running. Then there was their 75th wedding anniversary. Most couples would have a party. These two? They entered a 3-legged race against themselves, blindfolded. They won twice. Harold once tried to prank Myrtle by replacing her protein powder with powdered sugar. She found out mid-run. Let's just say that was the first time Harold ran a marathon in under 4 hours, barefoot, with a banana in each ear for protection. But it's not all chaos and cardio. Every night, Without fail, Harold and Myrtle sit on their porch, sipping tea, arguing about constellations and whether the neighbor's dog is judging them. He is. And then they laugh, because that's their secret. Not the running, not the diet of kale and questionable smoothies, but laughter. Pure, unfiltered, ridiculous laughter. That's what keeps them young. That, and maybe the ghost pepper sauce Myrtle adds to everything. Accidentally. On purpose. So the next time you see a sweet old couple holding hands and looking adorable, just know, one of them probably lost an argument 30 minutes earlier and is planning their revenge jog. And if you're lucky enough to love someone long enough to argue about squirrels, sandwich pickles, and the remote's orientation, maybe that's what happily ever after really looks like. You ever wonder what the afterlife is like? Harps, clouds, eternal peace? Nah. Apparently, it's more like a waiting room at the DMV, except instead of renewing your license, you're explaining how you managed to die like a complete idiot. Today, you're in for one of the wildest tales of 3 recently deceased dudes who met in the afterlife and shared how they kicked the bucket. And trust me, you won't believe how the third guy went out. Stick around, because this story is about to go from huh to what the heck real fast. So picture this. 3 guys sitting on a puffy white bench in a glowing white room that smells vaguely like hospital soap and angel tears. There's a big glowing sign above them. Please wait to be processed. No refunds. Guy number 1, let's call him Craig, is pacing like a caffeinated squirrel. Guy number 2, Jamal, is sitting cross-legged, humming the Jeopardy theme. And guy number 3, Larry, has his head stuck in a popcorn bucket. Don't ask. They get to talking, because what else are you going to do in a cosmic purgatory? All right, Craig says, I need to know how you guys ended up here. Craig sighs, like he's been holding this in longer than a sneeze in church. I was having the worst day. Got a text from my neighbor that said, "Hey bro, saw a guy walk into your house while you were at work. He was holding roses and wearing a bathrobe." Craig says, naturally, I did what any sane, mature adult would do. I kicked the office printer, sprinted to my car, drove 60 in a 30, ran 2 red lights, and flew into the driveway like Vin Diesel with trust issues. He kicks open the front door, finds his wife on the couch, alone. She looks at me like I'm the weirdo, Craig mutters. He checks the closet, the bathroom, under the sink, nothing. But the toaster was warm, he says, narrowing his eyes. So, in a fit of rage, Craig grabs the family's vintage mini-fridge, solid steel, weighs like a baby elephant, and chucks it out the 3rd-floor window. Boom, satisfying, he grins. But then I suddenly remembered I have the cardiovascular system of a scared hamster. My heart said, nope, and that was it. Next thing I know, I'm here. Jamal, calm as a cucumber, nods and says, "Dude, that fridge? That was my death." Craig's jaw drops. Wait, what? Jamal leans back, looking slightly offended. I was just walking my Chihuahua, Cheddar Biscuit, enjoying the day. Birds chirping, sun shining. My Spotify playing the Moana soundtrack because don't judge me, I am Moana. I cross the street, wave to a grandma, and then bam. He claps his hands loudly. Refrigerator to the face. Craig stares at him. You're telling me you were killed by my fridge? Jamal nods. Crushed me. Cheddar Biscuit is fine though. He pooped on the paramedic's shoe and then bit the coroner. Craig looks horrified. I'm sorry? Don't be, Jamal shrugs. I always told people I'd go out cool. Turns out it was cold. Now it's Larry's turn. He finally pulls the popcorn bucket off his head and says, I was in the fridge. Craig and Jamal both blink. You were what now? Larry shrugs. I live alone. My power got shut off. I was trying to cool down. Craig, By crawling into a fridge? Larry, it was hot. I figured if it's good enough for leftovers, it's good enough for me. Jamal, bro, that's not how science works. Larry, don't lecture me, Moana. He continues, anyway, I'm chilling, literally, eating grapes and watching Netflix on my phone. And the next thing I know, the fridge starts flying. Craig covers his face. Jamal is wheezing. Larry, I was mid-grape when we went airborne. Felt like I was in a NASA training program. Boom. Crashed into a dude walking a chihuahua. Then everything went black. Jamal mutters, that explains the faint smell of grapes at the scene. Suddenly, the glowing sign changes. Next, a golden door swings open, and a voice says, please enter. Craig, Jamal, and Larry exchange looks. Guess that's us, Craig gulps. They walk in. Inside is a giant desk with a massive, divine-looking being reviewing a tablet. He raises an eyebrow and says, so, let me get this straight. You died throwing a fridge out a window, he points to Craig. You died getting hit by said fridge, he nods at Jamal. And you died because you were inside the fridge that was thrown out the window that hit this guy, he finishes, staring at Larry. Larry, that's about the size of it. The divine being sighs deeply. You three are getting your own sitcom. So yeah, moral of the story? Don't assume the worst about your wife. Don't stand under suspicious shadows. And for the love of heaven, don't live in your fridge. If you laughed, gasped, or at least cringed at the audacity of Larry's choices, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more ridiculous Reddit-style stories, and comment below. Which of these three deaths was the dumbest? Our story today? Well, it begins with one very tired, very overworked subway operator named Dave. Now, Dave didn't start off cranky. Once upon a time, he was full of enthusiasm, ambition, and a deep-seated love for trains. Seriously, the man had a Thomas the Tank Engine mug and named his pet turtle Locomotion. But over the years, screaming passengers, broken air conditioning, tourists asking if the subway goes to Hogwarts, and the constant smell of stale pretzels broke something inside him. Then came the straw that shattered the caboose. One Monday morning, someone boarded the train, looked Dave in the eye, and tried to pay the fare with 3 expired coupons and a Starbucks loyalty card. Something snapped. Dave didn't yell. He didn't scream. He simply said, "Okay, folks, next stop, chaos." Cut to Dave's standing trial. The courtroom was packed. The prosecutor read off a list of offenses that sounded more like a rock band's tour dates. February 5th, took the train off the tracks and led a joyride through a Taco Bell drive-thru. February 9th, replaced the station announcements with cat meows. February 14th, let a mariachi band drive the train. The judge, old, tired, and probably on his 4th cup of coffee, slammed the gavel and said, "Dave, you are hereby sentenced to death by electric chair. May God and the Transit Authority have mercy on your soul." Dave, calm as ever, simply nodded and requested one thing for his final meal: a single green bell pepper. Weird, but okay. They strapped him in, flipped the switch. Nothing. Not a flicker, not a spark. The chair just sat there, humming slightly, like a toaster thinking about its life choices. By law, execution failed equals you walk free. So Dave walked. 2 months later, Dave's back. This time, the chaos involved an abandoned train, 6 raccoons, and a TikTok dance challenge gone wrong. We won't get into the details, but let's just say the raccoons now run a surprisingly successful food truck. Back in court, same judge, more bags under his eyes. He groaned, "Dave, we're doing this again. Electric chair. But this time, we're using the entire city grid." "Dave, same request. One green bell pepper. They strap him in. Flip the switch. Still. Nothing. People are freaking out. The judge whispers, "Is he some kind of wizard?" The warden is sweating. The janitor fainted. Dave walks. Again. Third time's the charm, right? Dave's third crime involved a karaoke machine, 200 gallons of glitter, and rerouting an entire train line just so it passed a Chick-fil-A on Sunday. Back to court. The judge is now just a husk of a man. His wig is crooked. He's clutching a stress ball shaped like a subway map. "Dave, you are sentenced to death by electric chair, and this time we're plugging it into every nuclear reactor in the state." Dave smiles. "Just one green bell pepper, thanks." At this point, the warden can't take it anymore. "All right, what is it with the pepper? Is it magical? Is it short-circuiting the chair? What gives?" Dave looks him in the eye, shrugs, and says, "Nah, mate, I'm just a bad conductor." And there you have it, the tale of Dave, the world's worst subway operator, and probably the only man to survive 3 electrocutions using produce. If you enjoyed this wild ride, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. What would your last meal be? And would it stop electricity? Catch you next time on another episode of Reddit Funny Stories, where the jokes are shocking and the endings are electrifying.